stomach problems are improving, but she's still receiving extensive care at home, and her mother is optimistic that
Is it recording? Yeah. Okay, go on in. Wait, stop. Okay, yeah, it is.
Here we go.
Say something, Glenn.
That's cool. Oh, I should have wound up once. Now I got a headache.
Take your thing in. How you turn it off?
The top.
don't forget to get some fruit out of the car.
Anybody that wants some fruit, we've got bags of fruit.
Oh,
Yeah. Tangerines, grapefruit.
I'll probably make some orange juice.
I'm sorry. They're
Lane, can you get out the vacuum and go real quick?
Yeah, good. Hurry, give me the end dust.
Yeah.
And then,
Oh, and many more.
We said it's not much, but it's for love.
Dr. Jen has a birthday next week.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll miss him.
We always miss him. 30 years anniversary.
Yeah, I mean, you're not even that old. When's your anniversary?
Because I got you beat.
That was after.
Yes, I was on
Yeah, buttons, top right hand corner. Top right
She
hand
knows how to work it as well as our mom knows how to work it.
That's eight.
Because she spends all her time watching it, huh, Bill?
There you go.
Yeah, I bet she watches it more than anybody else.
Yeah, I bet she does.
Watch this.
I mean, the reason you know how to work is because you spend all your time watching it.
Don't feel bad, I could turn it
Red
off.
light's not on, John.
Dad, how do you turn this thing off?
You're a mom like that.
I didn't hear.
Move it down the stereo.
Where, how do I do
I'm
that?
doing the other way.
Press audio,
What?
Bob.
Where did you go on your mission?
How do I get this? I got plan, but how am I getting this?
Because you don't have it on video one.
Alright, this is, oh man,
what's this?
alright.
What's this, Susie?
I don't know.
This,
This is recorded? Yes.
And you need to get us a camera right there that has all the stuff.
Yeah, Bill, trade yours in and get one.
no, you're the king.
Tastes good.
Good. You know, I always forget that you're supposed to talk with these after using the movie camera where you never could talk.
Susie said,
And this is cheerful.
Thank you. They turn it off now.
Oh, can I?
I'd like to go back for seconds.
Already?
Well,
Me
yeah.
too. Am I that slow?
yeah, right.
First thing, man, he got the thing in reverse and got it turned it straight down and rode down the ditch. Yes! Went up and
She didn't really go, yes! Did he say he had a good time?
Fingers down.
Sharon exaggerates this every single time.
It's worse every time.
If I get it,
see why he's seen you, we can hear.
let's start then.
Yeah, let's get the white elephants.
No curtain kids first.
Yeah,
You
you
wanted
do.
me to
Oh,
rattle.
I saw that up in your room.
What is it, Bar?
That's what you wanted me to rattle.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Bob. Okay, John, it's yours.
I do.
Okay.
Now we know John's next.
Voila!
Ah, candy.
Gosh, where'd that come
And
from?
now you know that one's not going.
Bryce O'Clubbo.
All right, now Meryl and I are 2 weeks.
Yeah, I know what mother is.
Let's see.
Isn't that cute? Isn't that cute?
Go.
Things that go on their best.
Charles,
I love that.
leave them alone. Don't open them. Don't open them.
Really want the other. How funny. What's that? That's breakable. Don't forget.
Really tight. Alright. Guys, somebody. There.
Hey, move back.
Right in front of you. Right in front of you.
Okay, Susie.
Wait a minute, come here.
Wait, you guys. Wait a minute. Bam over by a reindeer. That thing.
Close your eyes, Susie.
Stop.
Wait. Let's twist around.
Just let her go.
It's not.
Just let her go.
Twist it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to play with the string.
Well, but you knocked it down.
Okay, that's... Tell me when to put Curtis can see.
Whoa.
She's peeking. Right in front of you. Oh! Susie, wait. Curtis can't. Leave it alone. Oh! It's at your ball. Down. His face on the floor. His leg.
That's cheating.
No, that was boys. He too.
You want what?
Okay.
Okay, there go ahead.
Here goes Sharon.
Get it, Sharon.
Straight down.
Straight down.
Straight out! Straight out!
Come on, Sharon. Aggressive.
Doing exercise. Yeah!
Wait. Stop.
Give it a
Ribs, go!
Thank you.
With or without?
Christmas morning.
Used to laugh and call me names. They never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer game.
This is Christmas morning after we've opened the gifts and Shelley has cleaned up the living room.
Looks very nice.
For which we are eternally grateful to Shelley. We'll invite.
I know I wasn't had so many bumps of it. Terrible. So that's one thing Meryl took me in because she knew how I worked and everything. I could go. Yeah, when everybody back me I know we're like, I don't
Are they talking?
Aye.
Oh, say, well, they're talking.
Oh, you're gonna catch him at his.
Say what your name is so we'll remember. I don't know. 20 years from now, we want to look and say, who's that? John, you'll have to see every
There's Debbie and Jeff and Paul and Marlo.
Jeff Jr.
And that's Karen waiting tables.
Hello.
I've done for years.
Yes, she has her degree in that. And Karen, or Leslie. And that's Doug getting things.
Blocking Leslie's view.
Did you see the Dino's
That's Glenn. Glenn, play us a song. Yeah, keep playing. Keep playing.
Someone wants to stop.
And that's Marcy running around the table and Charles on this end. And that's Tanner. Hi there, and Tyler.
This is Tanner. Say hi. I'm
Tanner and Tyler.
This is Tyler. Tanner, how old are you? That's 5. Tanner's 5.
You're how many?
This is Charles.
Curtain number 1. Curtain number 1. 2.
What's behind number curtain?
Behind number curtain.
Use the red pen. Put the lid back on the red pen.
Well, you get a new one.
Object.
It's
An object.
Object.
Set,
Okay.
go.
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 Okay. it's-
Box.
Heart, box,
Balloon.
moon, time,
Belly button.
bed.
Belly.
Gun.
Place.
Cartridge.
Oh, Jack in the Box,
Military.
Jack in the Box,
Bell.
Joker.
Bell.
Cowbell. Cowbell.
Sean, look
Hey, that's
at the
beautiful.
count.
Was your account though?
This is what is it? It's difficult.
It's difficult.
Is it all
Okay.
play?
And it's an all play.
Let's go.
We'll get the timer ready. Where's the timer?
Set, go. I got it. Okay, face.
Face.
Okay,
Donut.
Donut. Hole.
Donut hole.
Rod, person.
Coin.
Coin.
Brain, man.
Diamond.
Man.
Dime. Quarter. Penny. Penny.
Is that a one?
So we automatically got it.
Received me.
Yeah, go.
Okay,
Okay,
put
what's
a
that?
C.
What's that?
Okay, we're
Doug?
doing okay.
What is that?
It's a penny. What is it?
Lincoln, man.
How'd you? My Lincoln looks better
Hey,
this
we
way.
get this one, boy.
I don't care.
We won if we got
I
this
thought
one.
it was a brain.
All right.
Give me
I
that
didn't draw
brain.
teeth.
I'll play, we can't get it.
Jimmy, house, person,
Woodpecker,
kid,
woodpecker.
kid.
You got it.
No, loser put the game away.
You guys can put it
Hey, you
away.
guys still got some time. You better keep guessing.
Yeah,
I know we
play
played
it.
You guys still got some time.
We have 3 left over.
Put him on.
It's gonna get here. It was ready now.
No, but it's starting to
Ready? Yeah. Yeah.
Look across the picture. You look all right?
No?
You don't have that on. The red light isn't showing.
Look at that man's face. Get him, Wayne, get him. Yeah.
Trojan horse. Trojan.
I was going to horse first.
Tired.
Come
on, Joyce.
Okay.
Glenn, you're up there.
Come on, Glenn.
Shelley's turn.
Let's go. Four.
Hey, you just turn around. You just turn around and mind your own business. I loved your Trojan horse.
Go, Glenn.
That's the last time I ever
Tell me you're videotaping me and I'll show you something.
Okay, I'm videotaping you.
Sharon wants attention.
Doug and Shelley, get up.
Hi.
Say hi. You're on candid camera.
Howdy.
I can turn it in as soon as they get back.
No,
Set a
you
date.
know, what's the least amount of time? Or when do you,
I got
when
5
do we?
weeks on the books right now.
Here, that's not what we're talking about.
5 weeks.
How much time notice do you have to give them for vacation time?
I can put it in any time.
Mike, when do you have to
You
put
can
it?
put it in Monday and
Well,
have vacation the next day.
It should be 2 or 3 weeks ahead.
All right, that's what I'm.
Well, we go on 3 or 4 months probably. I usually do my schedule in May for the summer, so I'll be, on the schedule.
What about you, Mike?
We're pretty flexible.
Well, I would figure if in springtime of that year, we set a time and worked
We'll
around.
know by then.
Yeah.
Well, and it depending on whether you decide to go to Denise's or whether you decide to go to commercial.
Yeah.
Denise is not gonna do so much of a problem, but something commercial, you probably.
Well, then you have to know earlier than that.
Yeah, no, you have to know.
Yeah.
Um,
So do we want to do it 89 or 90?
89.
Hey,
You be here in 89?
Well, yeah. You can be here in 89?
Let's do it 90 then.
no, 89.
The whole with Chuck
Oh.
89.
No, you won't.
You'll be gone.
Yeah, you gotta plan for all the weddings that are coming up, right?
What
In
weddings?
the summer.
Yeah, who's getting
Don't
married?
smile, laugh at me.
They'll just have to postpone it,
Well,
this first.
let's
so.
just
I'll
tell
be
you
engaged.
that it's correct, that we'll be able to pick up some names.
And it wouldn't be done in Oakland, it'd be done down there.
Well, what I do, there was nothing on our family lines, thinking of mom and dad going back, that we could do or needed to do, because as a matter of fact, it looks like we're now having a new era in genealogy work, with new data may be made more readily available in a different kind of a format, so we can search some of those endpoints that we thought we could come to and stop that. And I would just think we need to do that.
Why don't we have a family genealogical committee that will pay somebody to go to Scotland and look up those graves?
I'll go.
For the family.
I think the thing that you don't want to do is to go to Scotland or Ireland until you have exhausted what's at the Genealogical Society. But then you know what your woman's birth date, and we didn't have that before. That was new information. So yeah, we may very well get to a point where
Did it
indeed
give
a
his,
trip would
if
be
it gave his
helpful.
birthday, did it give his birthplace?
No, it said he was Irish, and so that.
Maybe he came from Ireland.
Well, that's
There are a
what-
lot of Scots who.
I know, and so that's another thing that we're looking at.
Share this with Grandma,
You know
We're
what?
getting on the camera first.
Just in the
Wait, this
last
has nothing
couple
to do with
months.
you.
Right on top of things. They'll get it, Sharon, I'm sure.
I got a phone.
We're running all the way from outside.
The phone is ringing. Someone pick it up and say
No.
hello.
Come on. You know phones aren't for that.
So there's 25 people in there now.
Until your eyes water all out and dry up like a raisin. This is everyone's behind. Can you guess who's who?
Yeah, why don't you stand over here? We'll stand over there where it doesn't shine in our eyes.
It's a pretty dress down there. Is that a dress or not?
Flashes? On the other side, Schwartz. Hey, quit jamming.
I want to be on the girl
No, you can't have the
Get
girls
over
together.
there.
No,
Gilbert?
Pat.
I always have to stand on this side.
There you go.
that's your son.
Okay, look out here. Look
You want me
congenial.
to make
Look
Davey
animated.
smile?
Little effervescence here.
Smile,
On
one,
three.
two,
1, 2, 3. Okay.
Oh, you're beautiful.
Okay, Foster's.
Chad. Chad.
Okay.
my other side. Take your bear down, Sarah, so they can see your
Smile.
Ooh, that's a fang smile.
Okay, got it.
I'm the small one.
Hey, Pat, why don't you help Grandma with Collins?
How come they get another picture?
Hey, move, Teddy. Okay.
Why do you have stitches?
Smile over this way.
Yes.
Yes.
Nervousness of you.
Such a good guy. I mean,
Ooh,
yeah, oh, that looks gorgeous.
There you go.
I get to get on
what a
How do
handsome
we know which
family.
camera to look at? Look at the middle.
What a
I
handsome
looked at
family.
them together.
All right. Oh, you're so handsome.
These are the temple lights. Arizona Temple.
Hey, you can even have sound effects, Glenn.
They glow in the dark,
They-
Dad.
They,
This is so special.
Sleep during a missionary homecoming.
Truly special. An event not to be.
Are you zooming out? Yeah, I just did. And here we are at the Mesa, Arizona Temple on December 27th, 1987, Sunday night.
Oh.
The time is 6:35. We've come here in the middle of our family reunion. Start in and zoom out or zoom in.
Yeah, don't just get that, get people too.
No, it's just you like to decide on what to do.
There are some people walking into our pictures.
Don't get people in it.
I feel a lot like it.
Every aisle. Like, one has a snowman, the next one has a star, or a Christmas, or something, or something. Oh, Mom, you know what?
What are you looking at, G? Well, honey, I'm taking names, I'm taking roll, and you're the leader.
Think of the temple, Shelley.
Hey, make a
Do you like the lights?
Oh,
It's gorgeous.
See the lovely lights.
look, and
Our
over here we
lovely
have
family.
lights.
Lovely family.
It's Vanna White.
Take that jacket off and show us what's underneath.
Show us that beautiful dress you got this week.
No, keep looking.
Okay, what do you think about the lights?
Well, the lights are very pretty.
Yeah.
But
Anything else to add to that, young man?
Oh, she
Well,
even turned correctly.
I think lights are really nice, especially around Christmas time. But I think that after a while, they sort of get really boring if you look at them for a long time.
Oh, yeah?
So I think maybe we should just go home.
Oh,
What do you think?
I don't know.
We were practically a little lonely until she had the camera out. I just ran real quick and turned it off. How you doing, Alicia? Do you want your clouds?
I think somebody's name was Kelly.
Yeah, I knew a girl, her name was Stephanie Kelly. Just kind of like George Michael.
No, it's just those clothes.
Candid moments of the Cameron family reunion.
I've never heard the smell clothes.
I have.
Sarah, Melvin,
The men of the family are standing.
That's right.
We're outstanding.
Get over
Oh, excuse me.
Sean, come sit down right here next to Glenn.
Glenn and I have always been on the edge.
You taking a picture of all this right here?
Same
Confusion.
for the husbands
Let
of
Charles
the
sit right
wives,
there.
girls.
Sit down, Charles.
Charles and Sarah.
Girls, let's put some girls in there.
What are you
Grandma's
sharing?
husband?
Let me show you on the end. Sean, sit behind Doug. I mean,
Where's Frank and Pooper
No,
Smith?
you can't be
Right
back
here.
I'm grandma's husband.
Charles, Glenn, that's enough. Put it down and come get in the picture.
No, this is not Glenn, this is Doug. Doug, get your butt over there.
Hey, dummy.
Hey, yeah.
Remember that one? When
Whenever
Whenever
Joy,
you want me to, I'll try and say a few words.
Yeah.
My voice is kind of cracked.
That's okay. Tell me about your grandpa.
Well, I never knew my grandmother Brunette. She's the one that we have the pictures of.
Mm-hmm.
She had 14 children. And I guess she had a real hard life. But Grandpa Burnett came, what's there in history there, but he didn't come with his folks. I mean, his folks came over to Utah with a different company, and he helped an older couple push in the hand car company. And he was only about 14 years of age. And I asked him one time when he came to visit, and I was just a youngster, and I was kind of shy about asking him any questions, but finally I said, Grandpa, what was it like to be a pioneer and to cross the plains? And he said it was hard, girlie. My shoes got wet and they wore out, and I had to throw them away. And from then on, I just wrapped them in anything I could. And he said I have blisters as big as hen's eggs on my feet. And then I don't know much more about that. I didn't know my grandmother Burnett at all. She died before I was born. And but my grandmother Rowry, she and I didn't know my grandfather Rowry either. But my grandmother Rowry was a little Scotch lady. She and her sister, her grandfather's sister, I think it was, lived together. And I remember one time when we went down to Delta and stayed for the summer. When we came back, we stayed overnight at Grandma Rowry's place. I think that's probably the closest I've ever gotten to her. But
Where was she living then?
In Ogden.
In Ogden, yeah.
But whenever we would go, she always had some peppermints for her grandchildren if they could have one. And I was about 6 years old because I remember I started school that year, that fall. No, I don't think it's ours.
Go ahead.
But of course, my memories of those things aren't very good anymore. But I often wished I had had a chance to be with my grandparents a little bit more. But Mother was the youngest in her family, and so she stayed and put off marriage for a while with Daddy, so she could take care of her folks. And they lived down in the old rock house down in the canyon, near the canyon. They built this, and I guess they have big wedding suppers and everything, and gave big chicken dinners and all. And but they had to grow their own produce, can their own food.
And it was hard because they didn't even have much in the way of water, did they?
No.
I remember you said how hard Grandma worked for even her culinary water.
But my own mother, you want me to, she had a hard life because she had just been married a couple of years, and they called, or about a year and a half, and I guess Viola was, the oldest child was just born, and they called him on a mission to Scotland. That's a regular 2-year mission. And they went without purse and script, and Mother had to take care of the farm. Well, I guess they rented out part of it, but they could. And she had to milk the cows and everything. And I remember one time when we were going up through the cemetery, I said, Mother, don't you hate coming up here with all these dead people? Doesn't it worry you? And she said, I've never harmed any of these dear dead people, and they wouldn't harm me. And this summer when I went up, I was so pleased to see that Lorena had used some of Mother's money to have a fence put around, and then she donated a half an acre extra, and in their name, of course, knowing Father and Mother, they wouldn't have wanted their names even on it. But I mean, up in public. But they was keeping it up nice and had it all planted in green lawns, and it was nice. But before the cows and the cattle and everybody could just go through the cemetery and the weeds would grow up, we'd try and keep the weeds down, but at least we could go and put flowers on the grave. And that's more than you can do in Iron Mausoleum. They won't even allow one.
Flower, yeah.
One flower. But
well, Mom, thinking of some of the grandchildren and great-grandchildren that are going to come after us, what would you like to say to them now that they will be able to hear from you years from now?
I would tell my children to remember the commandments that were given, what their parents teach them, and the 10 Commandments, to go attend seminary. That's the one thing I was so sorry that I was never able to attend seminary, because I had to work in my boarding room. And the lady that I worked for had 3 little children and expecting another one, and I had to get up and bathe them, take care of them in the morning before I went to school. And then our seminary was such a long ways away from our old high school there in Ogden. So I always felt bad that I never got seminary. And then when I got back in my nursing, I was away from the church. And I was, of course now wherever you go, you'll find a church or a ward. I'd say stay close to the church. Remember the teachings of your parents and your grandparents and your seminary teachers, and learn to say no, because there's even in my day there was all kinds of enticements and things. And I think I would have been a better woman if I had that strength to say no a lot of times on things. But I would tell my children to watch out. I know that there are many things, especially in high school, and with drugs and the like, that is very difficult.
It's not recording.
Welcome to the zoo,
We're excited. How about you?
We're all going? Let's go.
Go hold your brother's hand.
That's a different story.
Michelle.
Sarah Foster!
Dad!
All these stupid pictures. I'm sick of these stupid pictures. Only had more pictures just taken twice.
Okay, you can take this.
mountain lion.
Making life easier, Nick.
We're lying down.
Dad. Hello.
Thinks one of us is dinner.
Well, we haven't found ball. What?
Yay!
Go on, kisses, Mom. Go on, kisses.
Turn it off. Here, turn it off.
That's what we need is water.
The one with the feathers out.
See the one out there?
Hey, Peacock.
Turn it up, stop. Look at that gorgeous one there.
That's the male. The male. Always be looking at.
Yeah.
Same to you, fella.
He's saying,
Oh, look at him go after. See, he's going to go after.
Peahen, hey, I'm a handsome dude. And she's saying, I gotta
Which one is the mother one?
The mother one's the... Oh, there goes another one. They're going to just show their stuff.
You don't always see them open up.
That one looks
Whoa,
like...
you get back into the other one. That's the same to you.
Look at him, now he's running.
Look at the way the feathers go in the back. Isn't that interesting? Okay, Doug.
Birds in the dark boat house on their heads are after the sound of crying. They're all having fun in the birds. We've got some tall birds, one say hill, all red heads, one belly to black one, some birds to talk. No, the rangers are to talk. Some birds are really happy. And I'd like to suggest that when I come back to this more time for myself, you won't just stay the board machine. And the birds are sitting on it.
They're so ugly, they're interesting. She has to Is that what it is?
pickup truck. I wonder how long he had to take gymnastics to learn how to do that. Look at him, like he's paranoid. He has paranoia in his eyes.
There I go.
Hey, come back here.
There we go.
What are you doing?
Kiss.
That's the way.
Oh man, this guy's a real showboat.
They're black bucks. They're an Indian antelope.
Oh, we found out the name of them finally?
Why do you have that look there for?
Isn't it neat? Are we ready for the wood?
When you get some paper. No, give me.
Sarah, here's a paper.
Sherry, Leah.
Watch us, get it. Dad, watch it. Oh, you missed it. Watch this. Come here. Oh, I like the Bob on vaccine. He did. Come here. Come here.
He's getting the attraction.
He jumped on me.
Okay, no. I'm the attraction of the year.
My man? Yo, my main man. Talk to me, baby. Talk to me, Howard, baby. Yeah, Vanna White. That's right. That's what you named. Talk to me, baby. Talk to me. Turn some letters or something.
You like your ear scratch? Yeah, I'm soft.
I told you to film it. She doesn't have a camera.
Okay, this is his favorite bird, right?
The real turkey. The real turkey.
You see him.
Okay, the real turkey.
Then what are you?
I'm a pseudo turkey.
Oh.
It's Rhode Island Reds.
We have one of these in Idaho. This is standard for.
One of what? Oh, you worked at the zoo, didn't you?
Yeah.
Is your zoo as big as this one?
No. We have a very tiny zoo.
Marsupial.
Very tiny. We have all the
Okay.
Look this way. You won't take it with your knife.
In a house that two families lived in that wasn't even, it was a cane shack with a tin roof and dirt floor. Two families lived in it and it didn't even come, it was about from me to that wall. That's about, they're just real humble people. A visionary people, a lot of people were visited by dead ancestors and told to join the church. They have dreams, a lot of people had Lehi's dream that we taught. It was a good mission.
Costa Rica really super neat. I don't know if you know that I spent 4 months in Costa Rica only, so I really didn't get to know much. It's a colder climate compared. It's like almost all year round is about the same. Like I'm sure in Ecuador there's 2 climates, hot and muggy, and hot, muggy, and wet. And
It's the truth.
People are the same. They're short all around basically. In Panama, they're a little bit different. They're more like the Americans. Everything was Americanized in this city. They had everything the Americans had available to them, but they usually couldn't afford it. They tried to live like Americans with the pay of maybe 1/3 of what we had. So you might see a house again, let's say for example the size of this sofa section back here to the wall that had a stereo system in the corner and the TV set, and then they were lucky enough to get enough food to eat for dinner. And but it was good as we were talking before when we were coming in. They have a nice house, but you never even notice because a lot of times it's so much glowing inside with love and everything. So you don't even notice it. It's a small storehouse where you're sitting on a bed made out of logs with cardboard underneath it because everybody's so excited and fun and everything. In family meetings we had so much fun. You didn't even realize it for afterwards. Maybe they brought Kool-Aid and spent everything they could to get that Kool-Aid served for us. But really enjoyed it, loved it. Questions, commentaries, jokes.
Thank you. And then William Cameron Jr. Was our grandfather's father. And he came down and lived with Mother and Daddy when I was just a baby. I was born in July and he died in October. And Mother took care of him, and he was there in our home, and died there in our home at the age of 83. Is it 83 or 84? Something like that. Oh, thank you. And then William Cameron Sr., who was his father, was a little boy about 3 or 4 years old when his mother and his father, who was Peter Cameron, got on a boat from Ireland, we think, and came to New Brunswick, Canada. And on the way across, Peter Cameron died of some kind of an illness and was buried at sea. And so his widow came on to St. John's, New Brunswick, Canada, with 3 little boys, of which William Cameron Sr. was one. And this particular man, we found the 1853 census, which said that he was Irish, and that he had entered the colony, or had entered the country in 1783. And
it said he was Irish?
Yes, on the 1780 thing it said, country of origin, and it said Irish. And he was a farmer proprietor.
Maybe we've been searching the wrong line.
Well, I think that's precisely the point, is that obviously they came through Ireland. Now, whether they'd been there a generation, or whether they had been, or more, or whether they had just been traveling through, or whether he had been just born there, and they'd been living there for some time, before he came as a little child.
So we're really not of Scottish descent.
Oh yeah, we're Camerons, and Camerons are Scottish, but there was a lot of back and forth between Scotland and Ireland. Every time they had a potato famine, then people would move and go back and forth. So anyway, that is our name ancestor in terms of the Cameron group. And Jane Frances Lint, as far as we can tell, was probably English. And she married William Cameron. It's an interesting story, which I didn't put into the things that will be read tonight or told about tonight, is that William Cameron joined the church in the very, very early days of the church up in New Brunswick. But because he was at the time nearly 70 years old, he did not feel, and I guess maybe his wife, and he felt it was too much of a trip for them to go down to Nauvoo. And so when William Cameron and his brothers were getting ready to load the wagons and to take off, the story is told by one of the little children at the time, not these brothers, but one of their children, was that William Cameron Sr. came over to William Cameron Jr. and said, "Now Billy, don't apostatize." And he was the only one of the brothers that stayed and came west and came in the church. If it had not been for our ancestor, William Cameron Jr., we would not have been Americans, and we would have not been members of the church probably. So we have a lot to be thankful for him.
That's his cane that I have.
And yeah, and that's his cane that that Grandma has.
That same cane?
That very same cane belonged to William. No, it's William Cameron Sr. is the one. William Cameron Jr. was Daddy's dad, and he didn't come from there. It was William Cameron Sr. is the one.
He died at our house.
That we're, grateful to for that. So we have a really rich heritage here that we need to get back into Scotland and Ireland and find out the rest of these people, because the work's been done for Peter Cameron on down, but beyond him we have nothing. And so that's one of the things you need to know about. Sherella Llewellyn Bunker was a very interesting lady. She died of a goiter operation when Grandpa Cameron was only about 11 years old, and she had not been in real good health. And the story that Aunt Georgiana told me about her was that probably they didn't have post-operative care in those days, and she went to a hospital in Provo, had the surgery, and evidently had swelling in the area and began to choke, and there was no nurse on duty that night. And she died. I mean, it's the sort of thing that should never have happened if we'd had modern medicine. And so anyway, but she was quite a lady. Edward Bunker was a member of the Mormon Battalion, and he was a very stalwart member of the church. And it was really interesting because when George and I were looking at George's great-grandfather's history, what's his name? Grandpa Woodward. We found out that in his history he mentioned going with Edward Bunker on the plains to cut wood and to do some and to make the hand cards. Yeah. So actually he was mentioned in George's great-grandfather's autobiography.
They were together on the shores of the Mississippi River, preparing to go west.
Yeah. And we don't go back. He goes back into Maine, and we lose him there. So we don't even go to the end of this country before we lose the Bunker line. Okay, then we have Grandma's line.
Joyce mentioned William Cameron Jr. had 2 wives.
2 wives, remember?
May.
Yeah, that's right.
May and Martha, and each had 7 children.
He was a polygamist. No, he was not a polygamist. One died.
No. They each have died.
How come he married Sherella?
Well, Sherella was the second wife after his first wife died.
You said May and Martha.
Well, May and Martha
were the children of
May.
Yeah. How come we lost the bunkers of Maine?
Well, we just don't have the records. We need
I
to go
would think
back
that
and
was
look
so
at
many
it.
bunkers and everything that somebody would have
Well,
that information.
We need to do that. We need to go back and see
Well,
what
they
we
have
can
that
do.
little bunker book. That was
Yeah,
there.
and we need to go back. But when you look at the family group sheets, you will find that one generation beyond him were finished. I mean, that just shows to show you how little genealogy work has really been done when you look at our lines. Okay, then on Mother,
Bunkers were Scottish, weren't they?
Yes. Actually, we're really 7/8 Scottish as far as we know. We have one line going back on the left.
Where's Chad? I want him to hear that.
Sarah Jane Wilde.
He
was
insists
English.
he's not Scottish, my little boy.
Huh?
They had a thing in their classroom about your heritage, and everybody had to go and tell where they were from.
Yeah.
And Chad absolutely insisted he was not Scottish. I am an American. I am not Scottish. I tried to explain it. He just said to me, he says, "I'm not Scottish, Mother."
Well,
And
if
that's
you
probably
look,
why he left.
if you look at the 8 great grandparents across, the only one that was English was Sarah Jane Wilde. Everybody else came from Scotland. Ultimately.
Did they marry here in the States?
In the States.
Well, how do...
Pardon me for interrupting, but you'll get your patriarch's blessing, and they'll say that you were born of a noble heritage.
Well, you know, my matriarchal blessing says that I come, and that means all of us, from a bloodline of righteous people. That's the phrase. That's a real special phrase. It really is. Okay, Mom, do you want to just give a little bit quick of Agnes and David? Because you know them better than I do. They're your
Well,
parents.
David was one of the older ones, his mother had 14 children, and some of them died. I never did know her. She died before I was born. And he went with Agnes for 5 years. She was the youngest of about 12 children. And at the time that they went to Salt Lake, the president said, "How many children do you have? Or how many boys do you have?" And he said, 7. He said, "Okay, you go to Idaho and help settle that." And that's where some of this Raleigh, Idaho came from too. Up there. And so they just went where they were called. And Grandpa Burnett, he was 14 when, or David Burnett was 14 when he came over, and he helped an older couple.
That was William Van Dawson.
Yeah, push a handcart, and his folks have another company. And I asked him one time when I was 14, I finally got up courage enough, he came to visit us shortly before he died. I said, "Grandpa, what was it like to be a pioneer?" He said, "It was hard, girlie. My shoes wore out, they got wet, and I had to throw them away. And I walked barefoot, and I had blisters on my feet, and I wrapped them in anything I could." And they all settled in the little town of Eden there, and they helped Bill do that. And they were farmers.
William Van Dawson's family were traveling in France when he was born, and they sent for the doctor when she was about to deliver. And because they didn't speak French, there was a delay in trying to put the word across of what they wanted. And the doctor arrived just as the baby did. And so they said, "How much do we owe you?" And since he hadn't really done the delivery, he says, "Well, just give him my name." And it was a Dr. Van Dawson. And so actually, that's where he got William Van Dawson Burnett, was from that point. It's interesting, when you look at this level of pioneers that came across the plains, none of them came in the rich companies. They all either came by hand carts, or the poorest of the poor, or walked, or were helping other people to get across. I mean, we did not come from wealthy people. We came from righteous people.
So when it says we came from a noble heritage, they didn't mean of wealth, they meant of something else.
But anyway, James Rowley has a very interesting history too. We won't have time to go into much of it tonight, but he was quite an interesting Scot, and he really hung in there and kept the Scottish, what they called conferences going. Well, there was a lot of apostasy going on in Scotland in the church in the early days before that he finally came and immigrated.
He joined the church over there.
Yeah, he joined the church over there, and he was one of the real stalwarts. But he was also a very stubborn kind of a man too, and at one point...
A real Scot.
Yeah, at one point he was disfellowshipped in Scotland for a short period of time by, and he really shouldn't have been, because he was in the right, and the guy, who did it was later sent home from being the president of the conference. By conference, it was just a little area. But he admits in his autobiography that he should have been obedient to authority. And so he takes, his share of the blame for it. But anyway, he was a very righteous man. And it's interesting, when you read the book, they talk about all these horrible problems they had as pioneers. And William Van Dawson wrote in his book, after he went through several pages of all these disasters that occurred, he says, "I almost got discouraged." Can you imagine that? I mean, that's the kind of people we come from.
Joyce,
So
I
anyway,
mentioned when I was born, my mother had midwives like you are, the older women, not as trained as you are, but they delivered all of them except me, and they had to come 12 miles to the canyon with horse and buggy. And I was born the latter part of April, and that was still cold. And the doctor just barely got there in time to deliver me, so I was the first one, and in a family that wasn't, I was the 5th child that wasn't delivered by a doctor. And later on, when I was in training, I was helping the doctors in obstetrics, and I was new, and I guess I was watching a delivery, and the tears were rolling down my cheek, and they were all laughing at me. I looked at the doctor and I said, I know why you don't like OB now. And I told him about him. He was, "That you?" he said.
He was the one that delivered her.
From then on, he was so watchful of me, you know.
I
And
mean, he was the same one?
Yeah, it was the same doctor. She worked with us and nurse that delivered her. Okay, well now we're going to put this down so you can kind of refer to it as we go along. Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate that. But,
This is all we have.
oh well, no, we have some, we have some lateral lines and we have information about the children. And
That's
things
the
like
basic.
that. That's just the basic.
That's your 4
outline.
generations.
But anyway, just to kind of set the base, we thought it'd be kind of fun. First of all, I've asked Colleen to read. I excerpted just some of the most interesting points, and there's only about a page and a half there, 2 pages at the most, from both Mother and Daddy's autobiographies about their life, and then we'll turn it over to Douglas and Shelley, and we have picked some of the kind of funny incidents and interesting incidents from some of these individuals to portray. I think maybe there's one other that we want to read. Who has the section on, oh, I guess I gave it to you, didn't I, on Bunker?
No.
Did Mr. McCauley when he was...
No, I just have,
Douglas, do you have that?
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay, because I think we wanted to, that one we didn't do a portrayal of it. And so I'd like to have that read too. So if you can find that section, maybe Colleen could read that at the end.
Isabel Burnett Cameron and your grandfather, Clinton Ray Cameron. As you listen, compare their childhood experiences with your own. This is Mother first. I was born on Monday, April 27, 1908 at 2 a.m. Dr. Joseph Morrell was in attendance at the family home in Eden, Weber County, Utah. He had come the 12 miles through the canyon from Ogden in muddy spring roads with horse and buggy. He almost did not make it in time. When I was 2 years old, my father went on a mission from January 12, 1910 to December 24, 1911 to the western states. The spring I was 6, Father homesteaded a farm in Delta, Miller County, Utah. The 3 months we were there, I remember the tumbleweeds, snakes, coyotes, spiders, and heat. Our home was made of canvas tents and sheep wagons put together. This is Mother that we're talking about right here. When I was 8 years old and ready to be baptized, we had to wait until it was warm enough in the canal. So along with others, I was baptized on June 4th, 1916, in the irrigation ditch down by our cousin's home. How cold that water was. We were bundled up and taken home on a hay wagon so we wouldn't catch cold. School days were happy days for us. I was a good reader and speller and received good grades all through school. When the weather was good, we walked home for lunch. Mother would have a big pot of tomato, vegetable, bean, or potato soup ready. In the winter, we waded through snow or walked on top of crusted snow to school carrying our 3-pound large bucket lunch. We wore long black stockings, wool dresses with white aprons over it, mittens and wool caps and scarves. We never seemed to mind the cold. Sleigh rides, ice skating, and sledding were fun. In the summer, we swam in the irrigation ditches, had picnics in the hills, rode horses, and of course took the cows to the pasture in the morning and brought them home at night. My sister Amy and I took turns, and it always seemed to be my turn on the 4th of July. Then, armed with a candy bar, a popcorn ball from our 25-cent allowance, we would sadly leave to do our chores, hearing the shouts of the horse races and the ball game that we had to leave behind. I enjoyed my trips to the hills, singing at the top of my voice. It was possibly a 2-mile walk up and back, but as children it seemed much longer. Sometimes we would ride one of our work horses. On one occasion, as I went to bring the cows home, I found that they had broken the fence down and had gone up the mountain into the scrub brush. I searched but could not find them, and then I heard a sound that made my blood freeze. It was as if a baby was crying. I knew that somewhere in those bushes was a cougar or a mountain lion. Never had I run so fast for home. Papa got on his horse and went up to the hills, fixed the fence, and brought the cows home. Many nights after I would awaken, my heart would be pounding, and never again would I go alone to the hills. But somehow when the morning came, and with my courage renewed, I would again take up the familiar trail. Another time as I was riding to the pasture, my horse bolted from the path, and I found myself lying on the other side of the fence. Upon regaining my composure and the horse, I went to investigate. Here I found a snake coiled around a rabbit, sucking its blood. Another fear we had was our neighbors, vicious bulls, which sometimes came near our pasture gates and lunged at our horse as we tried to open the gate. Sometimes after the Lindsay sheepmen had crossed our trails as they were taking their herds to their ranch, we would find baby lambs deserted by their mothers lying in the bushes. We straddled them across our horses and brought them home to become our pets. We would place an old rug behind the kitchen stove to warm them, and then feed them with a baby bottle and nipple. We girls were father's helpers. Olive, Amy, and myself tromped hay, led the horse around the derrick, and took the cows to the pasture. We kept chickens which we children fed and gathered in the eggs. It was also our job to bring in the wood and coal for the stoves. When electricity came to the valley, we were one of the first to have it in our home. We also had one of the first bathrooms with indoor plumbing. I remember the first car I ever rode in and what a scary thing it was. Also seeing the first airplanes that flew over the valley. We were sure they were searching for us and we hid under the bed. This is from Grandpa Cameron's history. He's reading. Father used to take me out in the field with him. It was my duty to take the drinking water along, and as it was before I at least knew anything about canteens, we used a little brass bucket that would hold about 3 quarts of water. These brass buckets are not on the market now, but everyone had them then, and they were always kept polished to the nth degree. Of course, 3 quarts of water is not very much water, with what part of it that got spilled before we got to the field. So long about the middle of the forenoon, Father would send me to the house for more water. But by the time I would trudge back over the rough fields, which were sometimes plowed, I'd hardly have enough water left to quench his thirst. When Father reached the age of 82, he said he could still see me in his mind's eye coming across the rough field with that little brass bucket glistening in the sun. One thing I clearly recall was my fight, and it was successful, with my mother, who tried to make me wear a sunbonnet to keep me from getting burned and freckles. I said sunbonnets were for girls, and as proof I didn't wear one, I have freckles to this day. In 1911, my father and mother decided to leave Idaho and move to Provo, Utah. I celebrated my 7th birthday the fall after arriving in Provo, but I did not start school until I was 8 years old. I was sent to school when I was 6 years old, and again at 7, but each time I went only half a day and then went home. Mother thought I was quite a problem as she took me to the superintendent of city schools, but he said to let me play until I was 8, and I would do better work if I were more mature. I believe that this was a help, for all through the grades in high school I was at the head of my class. It was while we were living in Provo that I was introduced to the chore of taking our one milk cow to and from the pasture. This was the big bugbear of my life, because it seemed Father always woke me up earlier than I was ever ready, and the time to go and get her at night always broke into some important work or play of mine. My brother Glenn and I were delegated to the task of keeping 2 1/2 acres of corn, beans, and a garden free of weeds. I suppose we did fairly well, but the river bottoms were just a short way back of our home, and we spent a lot of our time in the old swimming hole in the river. Truly, an idle mind is the devil's workshop, for at one time we nearly got entangled with the law for greasing the railroad tracks with axle grease. Anyway, we had fun stalling a passenger train for an hour or so. And that's from Grandpa.
I don't believe Grandpa.
Never did anything wrong in his life.
The last section I wanted to read is that little section about Edward Bunker. Do you have
A Mr. Macaulay of Chicago, who was a very wealthy man, whose health was in ruins. His doctor told him he should go to the West and travel in the open air for 6 months to restore his health, and he would go with him. While they were in a Mormon community, Mr. Macaulay became very ill with a 102-degree fever and a chill. The situation was desperate, and so the doctor went to the home of a nearby farmer. It happened to be the home of Bishop Edward Bunker of Bunkerville. Instantly they were made welcome, and with the assurance that every accommodation within their power would be freely extended. Quickly the parlor was converted into a hospital ward, and every convenience available was placed at their command. Weeks passed, and finally we were well enough to travel again. On the day of their departure, he heard in the next room the family prayer before breakfast. Among the things that were said, the bishop thanked the Lord for the blessing that had come to the guest in his great improvement of health. For this special blessing, thanks were reverently poured out. A blessing for his continued improvement was sincerely voiced. Macaulay, in his gratitude for kindness received and his being the special object of divine favor, was almost overcome with emotion. He said later he had never heard such a prayer in his life. As he prepared to leave, Macaulay told the bishop what a great kindness he had bestowed upon him, and said it had really saved his life. I am greatly indebted to you, Bishop Bunker, and I desire to properly compensate you for your merciful kindness and care of me. I am a man of ample means, and to reward you generously would be a great pleasure to me. No, no, said the bishop, I can't accept anything from you. I have only done what any man should do for his brother. But I must do something to compensate with your bestowal upon me. I cannot let you go uncompensated. Please tell me what I can do for you in money or otherwise. The bishop replied, I am already amply repaid for my helpfulness to you. The only way you can pay me is by doing some other person who stands in like need of help as I have cheerfully done for you. And that closed the transaction as far as the Bishop of Bunkerville was concerned.
Okay, this is from the autobiography of Clinton Cameron, our grandfather. And first I'm going to read a little bit about some of the stuff he did, which is probably going over some of the stuff we've already read. But it says, I was born on the 13th of December, 1904, at Parker, Fremont County, Idaho. I recall that I was very much my daddy's boy, for I tried to go every place that he did. In the fall, I used to ride with him to the sugar factory when he was hauling sugar beets. Again, I remember several times when I went with him when he was hauling hay. We had to cross the Snake River, and as there was no bridge, we forded the stream. The water was so deep that it came nearly to a level with the top of the hay rack loaded with hay. In the summers, Father grazed his sheep out in the hills. There was quite a lot of timber, and on one occasion, when Brother Glenn and I were permitted to spend a day or two at the sheep camp, I saw my first wild bear. We had moved camp the day before, and on returning to the site of the old campground, we saw several bears nosing around the discarded tin cans. I cannot remember the sheep herder's name, but I thought he was just about the best man that ever lived. One day, my mother was making pies, and I decided I would like to take the herder a pie. So I took the pie. Mother gave me.
He's supposed to do that.
Is he supposed to? I took the pie Mother gave me, and amidst the bleating and blowing of the sheep, I had to go through the herd of sheep to get to the wagon. When I got about halfway, the sheep became curious to see what I was and closed in around me. Some of the beggars ate my precious pie right out of my hands. When the herder rescued me, all I had left was an empty pie pan. I was so broken-hearted that I cried all the way to the house. Mother soothed my feelings by giving me another pie for the herder and sent my brother Glenn, who was played by Sean, along to keep the sheep.
Burnett Knight. She was quite a character with a great sense of humor. On one occasion, she staged quite an elaborate scene to convince anyone who came by that she had hung herself. She stood on a box in a stall in the barn with a rope hanging from a beam into which she had placed her head and simulated death with her tongue hanging out and eyes rolled back. One of her sisters came screaming into the kitchen, "Mother, Mother, Callista hung herself in the barn." Grandmother Burnett, quite used to her shenanigans, said calmly, "Oh, has she now?" and continued working.
I'm Grandma, I think.
She's reading.
Another time, she noted that a sister was in the habit of kneeling down at her bed to say her prayers, and would then look under the bed to be sure no one was there.
Next day.
Amen.
Good night. Next day.
We got the idea.
Amen. What are you doing? I'm looking under the bed. Why? Well, in case
someone's under there, like, they might come and get me, so.
Sure.
Good night. Right. Next day.
It's supposed to be a joke. So narrator, tell us what she's doing.
Read that one next one. Okay. So she took her father's pants and shoes and stuffed them and placed them in position.
Stop it.
And then.
When the nightly ritual was conducted, the startled sister gratified her by screeching at the sight of a man hiding beneath her bed.
My name is William Van Dawson Burnett, and in 1880 I put a crop in to plant, and I worked hard for this crop because fighting off the bulls and everything and fighting off the people were trying to steal my water rights. It took me a long time to put this in, and then again came all the grasshoppers and started to attack the different fields and stuff. And I found that they were going over our different crops, and that our neighbors and everything were being attacked. And so, in a little bit angry, I just shouted, "Get out of here!" in the name of, using the name of our Lord, just shouted, "Get out of here!" and walked inside the house. When I left, when I came out several minutes later, I found that there were not any grasshoppers whatsoever, not in my land. And later that every single one of my neighbors had, all of their crops had been eaten. But during that year, I raised over 700 bushels of grain because they had left mine alone.
I remember Grandpa.
I was working in a hospital. This is Grandma. This is a story from her life when she was in nurses training, and this is just an experience she had. Okay, ready? Okay. This incident occurred when she was in nurses training. One day, as I served trays on the old wing of the hospital, one patient said, "Miss Burnett, how come I didn't get meat with my scrambled eggs as others do?" To my denial, he held up a large cockroach to the laughter from the other men. I never could eat eggs and hams for years without thinking of that. It's that Grandma had working in a hospital. This incident occurred when she was working at a private hospital in St. Joseph, Michigan. One night when I was alone on duty, the patient load was very light. I noticed a man with a cape over his eyes peering into the hospital. He stood in the vestibule and stood on a bench. I called Miss Hillig, who roomed on the top floor, and we searched the hospital and locked all the doors. The next few nights, a young policeman came and stayed off and on. I went off night duty soon after and learned that the neighboring hospitals had drug addicts that came and stole from them and the doctor's offices. Al Capone, a gangster of the 30s, had a summer home in Benton Harbor. One of his henchmen had a daughter with appendicitis, and they brought huge baskets of flowers for her. She went home in the evening, and I discharged her. He gave me a $100 bill. He was to receive $10 back. I knew the combination to the safe, but I was not about to open the safe up in front of one of Al Capone's men, so I told him he would have to come back the next day. He handed me the $100 bill and said, "Buy the nurses some candy with the 10. I was relieved. They were a gang that was terrorizing that part of the country. We divided the money among the nurses.
I am narrating. This is this guy right here, William Van Dawson Burnett, the guy that chased the grasshoppers off. This incident occurred when he was working as a guard at the Utah State Prison around 1870. It was dangerous work. I've had some very narrow escapes from being killed. One prisoner pulled a gun on me, and I finally had to let him go. Another time, 2 stage robbers were going to kill me. They were working in the canyon south of Camp Douglas. They were making roads and cutting brush. They all had hatchets. Tom Moore was with me as a guard. I was lying down when one of them came up to me and choked me. He took my gun and ran to help the other robber that was on Moore. I had a shotgun concealed in the brush. I fired at the one that was on Moore and shot him in the leg. The one that got my gun ran. I tried to shoot the other barrel, but the cap fell off. I had a small 5-shooter in my boot, and while he was running, I fired at him. He was quite a ways off, but the bullet struck him and killed him. I did not like to do this, but it was my duty.
Junior and William Cameron Jr., we're going to read them real quick because they weren't acted out. And we'll first of all start with the two stories about, well, a story about William Cameron Sr. He was a man who was very neat and careful in his dress and always wore white shirts with the front starched and pleated. He expected the members of this household to dress neatly and be clean at all times. One of his children, Martha, told her daughter this story about her father. At one time they had a young lady visiting with them and they were all going to the field to pick peaches. As they were going out of the gate, father said, "Margaret, come back and black those shoes." She said, "Brother Cameron, I'm only going to pick peaches." "I know," said grandfather, "but a lady wouldn't even pick peaches in shoes like that." And so Margaret had to go back in and black her shoes. Okay, and this is a second incident from William Cameron Sr.'s life. In the winter of 1906 to 1907, a grandson was working with sheep in the Dixie County for Ira W. Hatch of Panguitch, I can't pronounce it right, Panguitch, Utah. Some grain was needed for the camp and horses, and James went to St. George for it. After several inquiries as to where he might buy the grain, he finally learned that a Mr. Hardy had some rolled barley for sale, that he was at the present time in the pool hall. "Yes," said Mr. Harley, "I have some barley to sell, and it will cost you so much a pound." The price was agreed upon, and James said, "Well, I haven't the money for it, but I am working for Mr. Ira Hatch of Panguitch, Utah. He is the largest sheep and cattle man in Garfield County. He is thoroughly reliable. I will okay your bill, and he will send you your money as soon as the bill is received." Whereupon Mr. Hardy said, "I have the grain to sell and I need the money, but it takes money to get it. You can't have the grain unless you pay for it now." James insisted that there was really no risk in letting it go on open account. Hardy was getting peeved. "Well, who are you?" "My name is Cameron." "What?" said Hardy. "Are you related to Uncle Bill Cameron who used to live here?" "Yes," said James. "He was my grandfather, and John Cameron is my father." "Well," said Hardy, "that's different. I don't know Hatch, and I don't much care to trust him. But I knew Uncle Billy Cameron, and on the strength of his integrity, his grandson can have whatever he wants. If I've got it, and it don't take money to buy it either. But remember, it's you and your Uncle Billy Cameron I'm trusting, and not Ira W. Hatch." On the grandpa's father. Yeah. As a young man, he was in the freight business. The railroad went south only as far as the town of Mona, which is north of Nephi, Utah. So he would go there to pick up what freight there was. He also freighted into Nevada to the mines. In the wintertime, he would be with his team, which consisted of horses, mules, and oxen, all in the same stream. At night he would camp and feed his animals grain, and then have his own meal, which consisted of cold food, and then would kick the snow up off the ground and lay down to sleep with only a blanket under him and one over him. Many times when he awoke, there would be a foot of snow over him that had fallen during the night. One night in Nevada, he was camped and asleep when, about midnight, several horsemen rode into his camp and wanted food. He told them to prepare themselves food from his grub box, which they did, and rode away into the night. Several weeks later, he was in Poche, Nevada. Pioche, Nevada. A mining town, and a man came to him and put a $5 gold piece in his hand and said that the food they got from him saved their lives. They were outlaws running from the sheriff.
When we were in Mount Hood one time, and as we came back from dinner, we had 2 cabins. And Marilyn and Colleen and I were staying in one cabin, and Nadine, who was just a little baby at the time, and Mom and Dad were staying in another cabin. And so as we came in, we could see this bear peeking around the edge of one of the cabins. And so Mother said, hurry up and get into your cabin. So we went into the cabin. And after we got into the cabin, I had eaten too many cherries that day, and I had a really crampy stomach. Oh, it's killing me. Oh, I feel so awful. Run and get Mama. Tell her I need her.
I'm not going out there with that bear.
Oh, Marilyn, please.
No, I'm not going out there.
Marilyn, if you don't go out, I'll die.
You just have to die.
Okay, that's all.
I remember that so well.
Wait just a minute.
It's all right.
We all have to die sometime or other. Daddy and I used to talk about it. We say we wish we could go hand in hand. But he was older, so he went first. So anyway, we kind of talked about our funerals. And Daddy's funeral was lovely, but it was too long. So I want a very short one. And Joyce, most of these people didn't know me when I was able to think and do things for others. And so I don't want a lot of eulogies. And I would like the children, the grandchildren, to sing, I am a child of God. Why don't you all sing that now? And that's my favorite primary song that came out while I was there in primary. So I just wanted to mention that Daddy and I, when he was bishop and then Los Angeles Ward, we had the opportunity of meeting many of the general authorities. At that time, a lot of them were presidents of the church, but later some of them became presidents. And I had a blessing by Harold B. Lee. I was losing my hearing about that time, and I felt bad because I couldn't hear them when they were ordaining some of the men. And so Daddy asked me to give me a blessing. And he said, you'll always be able to sustain your husband in his work. That was one of the things I remembered. He didn't say that I'd be well or that my hearing would be made perfect or anything, but that I would be able to do for him in that time. And so I would like them to sing that. Could they? No?
A dry run. Okay, all the grandchildren stand up. Right here, she wants to hear.
Stand up. Right here, right now.
March you together.
Let's just sing it. Come on, Chad.
Keep your for that, Joyce.
Chad.
I am a child of God, and He has sent me here, has given me an earthly home, with parents kind and dear. Lead me
so proud of all of you.
And that's chocolate.
You go in and do a third of it. Only two
No,
thirds are in
I don't know what a 30 is, and I'm not about to go in there and do it by myself.
No, you don't.
But I'll end up with they can put all the people in there and work together.
You get in there.
Okay, go ahead.
Slow it down.
Yeah.
Okay. This is just an addendum to the tape, and looking at it, I realized that I had used my memory and had left out a generation. Peter Cameron died at sea. It was his son with 2 other brothers, Peter Cameron Jr., who came to New Brunswick, Canada. And so earlier when I...
I'm taping now. This is December 22nd, 1988. This is the next Christmas.
And this is Sharon telling
Here's
her that
Sharon
she
with a
wants
big
Ritz
nose.
for dinner.
She wants Ritz for Christmas.
Dinner for Christmas.
Oh, you'd like more fun, right?
Yes.
The Tanners are gonna come over for dinner pretty
Dream
soon.
this, we'll dream big, sure. Did you see what it was?
Nothing's a good
Yeah, I wouldn't marry you if you
Smile
were
again,
less than
Sharon.
on earth.
Well, hello.
The Tanners are here now.
How are you guys? You can take the food in there. Which one of ours cried all the way to Hawaii? Wayne? And so we didn't have anything, but John had an adult capsule of something. Secanol. Opened the capsule up, took a couple grains out, gave it to him, and I mean, he quit crying mid, you're crying and he quit.
Took a breath.
I mean, he did. He cried.
No, it was, we put it in his applesauce, so it was 4 or 5 minutes later, we were driving along, and he was screaming, and all of a sudden, a suppository that will put it this way, it's the best medicine you can give most of the time. So he gave me a bunch of samples. So we always,
I remember heavy jumping.
John was the suppository.
There it is. All right, sing along.
First, everyone hits, and then on the next count, C, E, G. And then I'll get on holy night, and C, E, G.
The batteries are dead.
What? What battery is this?
No, they were on the
Okay, that means you're recording. You should already see that music.
Nope, that's Bailey.
Come on, baby. Nadine, stand by your baby so I can get a picture of you and your baby.
My baby's about to be next, though.
Okay, Nadine. This is Nadine McBride. There you go. Okay. This is Elizabeth and...
It's out.
Ready? Swing. All right.
I'm not gonna hit it this hard.
What are you doing? Throw it up in the air.
See if it can catch on fire.
Throw it up in the air. See if what can catch on fire.
If it catch leaves on fire.
Wayne, throw it up in the air and we'll tape it.
It almost broke. Tell me when you're filming.
Go over here. Yeah, I'm filming right now. You need to go out farther so we can get it more of it.
Use the stick. The bat will break it if you use it too easy.
I know, I'm on the.
No, give it a chance to the older people.
I am breaking it, buddy.
Charles, get out.
I guess the baby don't want to do it, so Susie's the youngest.
I should do it, huh, Susie?
Where is it,
Doug.
What?
Only take about a total of 30 seconds of the whole pinata thing. If we don't want to watch 20 minutes of it,
That's true. That's
Sure, hit it.
Hey guys!
Fast
Get
forward
everyone's
a lot.
first hit.
I guess one of these years it'll be.
Big red. Mark.
Now you can see what it's Get the top of that thing. Come on, do it. Yeah.
You hit it.
I know. That's why Glenn won't.
Oh, it's ready.
Well, you better be over here. It's gonna break.
Not too close.
Whoa!
Overrun.
It didn't break.
Let go.
It
Now
didn't
we got
break.
2 hits.
What'd you get, Brian? 3 Musketeers?
Did something come up? What came up?
3 Musketeers.
I was gonna say,
Oh yeah.
Gotta go to the candy bar.
Oh, you can't.
Oh, wait. Should we let Sean finish it? Let Sean finish it. Forget that.
Oh well.
Sean, you're gonna let this original.
hey, I want to get some.
Hey, you guys. I want to
Ladies and gentlemen, here we are, Christmas Day, 1988.
We've already been to church.
What time is it? It is now 10:39.
And we have a very nice choir program.
Come in.
Oh, I better find out what they are. I threw those away.
Nuts,
That was the back door, wasn't it? Look at it.
The lights on this. There's a light in the back. By his ear.
You sure you're taping?
Mm-hmm.
Does it say record?
Meanwhile, we're all gabbing here. Alright. I pitched this on film.
Daddy's gonna wake up by.
Don't move that out.
Not so loud.
Shush.
Hey, fight over here the same thing.
Who's gonna sweep?
Who's his baby spell her
B-A-I-L. I have an accent mark in the last D, but it's slow.
One in nursery, I always teach you about.
Unless he breaks it.
Teach how to fight. With all the nursery boys on. You guys don't have hardly a lawn.
I know. It was a present way back when. They knocked the head off.
Your dad got for you guys?
No, he got it for him. Are you kidding?
Oh, the hat's off already?
Oh, is he open?
It's-
Let me tell her what close your eyes.
I had my eyes closed when I hit it, then when I hit it, I opened it.
No blindfold this year?
We're trying to be honest. It's not going to work very well. Yeah, Bailey. Who took his head off? Joyce.
Daddy, this is what you have about 4 years ago.
Okay, here.
Hat off.
Okay, now close them eyes, dude. Oh! He draws first blood. Make sure
You are. See, we're cleaning up now.
Is it working?
The camera broke for a while, but now it's working again. So now we get Vicki and Sharon cleaning up, and Debbie in the background.
sideways so we can see it's a stocking.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't have a
Yeah, my mom went out and had to buy a portable crib and a swing.
Well, we have the porta crib that we have when Douglas was born.
My mom still has hers from me too, and it's all rickety and cute little wooden thing. Hi, what a cute shirt. I like that as a Christmas. Well, you have good taste.
Especially when she says, yeah, this is the one
Yeah,
I
this
like
is. Yeah, I know Jeff's around, but I hadn't seen Steve. If you tell me Steve's here, I'll tell you Jeff's here.
Katie feels late. And all this noise.
Can you believe it? I might just lay her down. Couch right here, right here.
I think you are down to sleep, buddy.
An angel.
She's fun. We went over to visit Granny last night, and Granny was laying on the bed, and both she and Max were throwing themselves on top of her, you know, and I thought, they've probably broken every rib she's got. Max would throw his full body weight right down on top of her.
open the sink, and then the sink is full of water. One of the pipes that's in and out.
Casserole thing. And I set it on a burner, waiting to put into the oven. And I said to Leslie, turn on the potatoes on the stove so the potatoes will start cooking so we can mash them to the raw burner. And all of a sudden, I said, just a loud pop. And the glass from the bottom flew everywhere, but the lid stayed on.
Don't shop on Thanksgiving Day. They were jammed, their hands told everybody that they were open. I went over there and they weren't open. The whole reason I didn't go there is because,
Did Santa Claus bring you that out?
Why don't we talk to you?
Hey, you're the pregnant one.
Your plate, man.
Oh, I will. If you go last, you get to eat all the leftovers. Your what? Your Jello?
Jello melted in the car.
Oh.
Where's Dad? Max, are you hungry?
And this is Paul taking a picture of me, taking a picture of Paul, taking a picture of me.
It's kind of like a force.
Yeah.
So you'll go back in time, I think.
You're supposed to wear it because for 20 years they may not remember who belongs to
You got a baby in this house. You're gonna have grandkids.
Chelsea.
Chelsea.
Give me a flying lesson. Fly. Whee!
She's looking up.
Hey, Chelsea. Chelsea. Can't you look up? Hey, look over here. Chelsea, look over here.
Shelly, do you want to play?
Yeah, I guess I'll play.
Okay, she'll let play.
She was looking up just a second ago, now she won't look up.
Hey.
Jessie!
Jessie, look over here.
Did I what?
See ya. Are they
Bye.
outside shoeless?
Yes.
It's Arizona.
Caitlin, are you playing the piano?
Piano player? Do you have a piano at your house?
Yeah.
Do you know how to play it?
Are you gonna get her? Is Jeff gonna get her that new computer teach instructor piano?